Hello, Snugglebugs. Welcome back to another card review for Murder at Castle Nathria coming out on August 2nd, where today we're going to be looking at the last two classes with the Warlock and the Warrior. And without further ado, let's just hop right into it. So first up for the Warlock, we have a 3-mana spell called Suffocating Shadows. When you play or discard this, destroy a random minion. Now, in Standard, there's not too many ways to force yourself to discard cards, but of course, if you could, that would be really good. But even if it's just a 3-mana destroy a random enemy minion, you're talking about a Warlock Deadshot from Hunter, which could be really powerful. You know, I think overall this card is really good. If there is any cards that see play in the decks that make you discard your own hand, because of course, if you discard this and also destroy a random enemy minion, but use that as the cost to play something very powerful, then this card is just even that much better. Next up, we have a 3-mana 3/3 called Shadowborn. It has a death rattle, reduce the cost of the highest cost shadow spell in your hand by 3. That's all the threes. All the threes. And here we have just a good card if you're playing any form of shadow spells. Of course, the perfect stats would be 3 mana 3/4, but being able to effectively reduce a card by 3, you know, when you look at it over time, it's almost like it's a 0-mana 3/3. So if you're playing a lot of shadow spells, I actually feel like Shadowborn is going to become a very powerful card. If you're not playing a lot of shadow spells, of course, not worth it for the stats. So depends on the deck. If shadow spells, a high quantity of shadow spells you play, and we do see some more, we'll go take a look at some more shadow cards, but in the right deck, I think this will be at least a medium to high quality card. Speaking of which, we have the 5-mana Shadow Waltz. Summon a 3/5 Shadow with Taunt. If a minion died this turn, summon another. Doesn't have to be a minion on your side of the board, can be an opponent's minion. So say you somehow destroyed a minion with the Deadly Shoddy style card I was looking at over there, the Suffocating Shadows, and then you have the 5-mana left over, you play this and it's 5-mana 2 3/5s with Taunt. Now, if it's only 5-mana single 3/5 with Taunt, definitely not worth it, right? So there's where it comes into play, where if the 3/3, you know, perfect world, the 3/3 here, the Shadowborn trades into an enemy minion, it dies, it reduces this to 2 mana, and all of a sudden, because a minion died, it becomes 2 mana to summon 2 3/5s with Taunt. Of course, that's wonderful. So the question here just becomes, how reliably can you have 5 extra mana while taking out an opponent's minion? I don't necessarily know if you can do that super reliably, but I do have to admit, I love the artwork on here, love the flavor, and I hope it works. I don't think it's going to, so for now, I'm going to even give it a cautious mid-tier quality card and move forward, wondering depending on how the other shadow spells look. Also for shadow spells, though, in the expansion for Murder at Castle Nathria, we have the 5-mana legendary minion, Lady Darkvein. Battlecry, summon 2 2/1 shades. Each gains a death rattle to cast your last shadow spell. As long as you've played one previous shadow spell, I don't believe it has to be while they're alive. You know, you get 3/5s with Taunt, especially because the minion died, because it would be death rattle. So it should, in fact, summon you 2 3/5. So if that's the last one you played before you played Lady Darkvein, and they destroy both of the 2 little dudes that are left, they both die, you get like 4 3/5s with Taunt. Maybe that's the world it works. Personally, I feel like this could also work in Curse Warlock because of things like Drag Below and the Abyssal Wave, of course, being shadow spells. They just become 2 death rattle, like a 5-mana gives you 2 death rattles that maybe reuse your Drag Belows. Hopefully hit your opponent's minions, which would be amazing, but worst case scenario, even if they hit maybe your own Lady Darkvein to kill it, that gives your opponent 2 more curses, which as of right now, being able to give, you know, get more value out of curses in the deck is amazing. So that's to me where I think this will probably land, but I believe this card is high. 3/6, it comes with 2 2/1s, just amazing. Replaying the value, also amazing. And if it's with curses, especially, just adding that more damage to your opponent. Next up, we have a 3-mana Warlock spell called Tome Tampering. Shuffle 1-cost copies of all the cards in your hand into your deck, and then discard your hand. So on one hand, you're doing massive mana cheat, but then you have to put the cards back into your deck. Or, well, you put them back to your deck at one, then you discard your hand. So you empty your whole hand, but say you play this on 3 while you have 4 or 5 very high cost cards. Yes, you discard your hand, but you're reducing them down to 1, so eventually when you draw them later, they're super cheap. And of course, with Warlock, there's a decent amount of draw, and then there's hero power now. I know I usually only play and talk about Standard, but I will say in Wild, There is I think it's Malchezaar's Imp, which is whenever you discard a card, you draw a card. So for 4 mana, you basically get 1 copy's worth of cards put in your deck, say 6 or 7 by the time you're at turn 4, maybe even 8. And then you draw 8 cards back, hopefully cards that cost 1. So in Wild, I can see this being very strong. In Standard, however, I don't really see this seeing any play at all. Now, the Imp package for Warlock is where I can see it actually going off pretty good. And one of the reasons is right here. The 2 mana Impending Catastrophe, which is draw a card, and then repeat for each imp you control. There's so many ways in Standard today to summon a decent amount of cheap imps, and we'll show even more imp support coming up. So this can easily become like a 2 mana draw 5. I think imps are definitely going to become a new meta-defining card. They the play archetype. They the play archetype. They the play archetype. They the play archetype. They the play archetype for the Warlock class, and I am kind of looking forward to giving that a try. And here we have the 1 mana 1/3 flustered librarian. This card is a 1 mana 1/3, which is a pretty decent stat line. A lot of high quality class cards of the past have this stat line, but it also gets 1 attack for each imp you control. So imagine you play this on turn 1, and then the turn after you play a card that gives you 1 or even 2 imps. Boom. All of a sudden this can then smack face really hard. People have to try to trade into it, remove it, or keep your board clear of the other imps. And it just gives them that pressure to want to remove it before you get the board of imps going. This is a high quality card in the right deck, but even a 1 mana 1/3 with some potential imps that just get played in Warlock in general makes it an overall good Warlock card. The 2 mana location for Warlock is called the Vile Library. So it's a 2 mana 2 durability, so you can do this twice. Give a friendly minion +1/+1. So again, not great right off the bat, but repeat for each imp you control. So again, imagine you have even say 3 imps. I'll try to go with the average one to do this for. 2 mana effectively over 2 turns, giving minions +6/+6, like +3/+3, and then +3/+3 again. Is amazing for 2 mana, right? So I think this card, again, as long as people can't keep your board completely clear of imps all the time, will be a high quality, very high quality card. And here is a new imp from the Murder at Castle Nathria. It is a 4 mana 3/3 mischievous imp. Battlecry. Summon a copy of this, but if you infuse 3, so you have 3 minions that die while this is in your hand, you summon 2 extra copies instead, so it becomes a 9/9 worth of stats over 3 bodies for 4 mana. And if you're summoning a bunch of, say, the cheap minions and cheap imps, things like that at the start of the game, if this is in your hand, infusing 3 is not that hard, so it's a really good board reload refresher. Yeah, in slower Warlock decks, I don't see this necessarily being played, but the way it's going, or the way it's looking, I think Imp Warlock is going to be really powerful, as I've said, so I believe that Mischievous Imp will play a part in it. And then last but not least for both Warlock and this Imp package that I'm talking about is a legendary 6 mana 6/6 Imp King Rafam. Battlecry. Resurrect 4 friendly imps. So right away, amazing card, right? There's no other negative effect to make you have to summon these imps. It's just 6 mana 6/6. Even if they're all 1/1s, you're looking at 10/10 worth of stats spread over bodies. And then infuse 5, which again, in an aggressive tokeny style Warlock deck, a Zoolock maybe, if you will, it shouldn't be that hard. Then give your imps +2/+2. So even if those imps that you summon, let's say you only summon 1/1s off of this, but then they all get +2/+2, you're talking about 12/12 in resurrected imps plus your 6/6, 18/18 in stats, I would think relatively easily for 6 mana, which is beyond good, especially if this is the high end of your mana curve, and it's just kind of like that board reset similar to the 4 mana with 3/3/3s that we were just talking about, where your opponent just has to keep constantly clearing the board and you just keep throwing more and more at them. And keep in mind, that's if they're 1/1s that get resummoned. If they are, say, those 3/3s that get resummoned, they become 4/5/5s, which is just obviously even more impressive. I think this deck is going to be amazing. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Subscribe if you like the content, and let's go review some warrior cards. So first up, we have a 2 mana warrior spell called Riot. Your minions can't be reduced below 1 health this turn. They each attack a random enemy minion. So it's kind of like if you have a good amount of the board being equal, from your side to your opponent's side, Riot kind of becomes a way for you to hopefully clear your opponent's board and keep your minions alive. Potentially only at 1 health, but still keeps your board alive. As of right now, unless the Enrage package, which we'll go over some more of the cards from this set that might bring some Enrage stuff back in, Riot might not work. I could see this maybe being a semi-board clear in Pirate Warrior, just because they flood the board and then they can attack your face, and then if you do have minions to try to counter them, they can play Riot to like have their minions trade into your minions. Now, it doesn't say that each one of your minions have to attack a different enemy random minion. So if your opponent has like one big boss monster and you have 2 or 3 small monsters, you can then, I believe, use Riot to take all of them out. So it's not a bad card. Maybe it'll see some play, but I couldn't see it. I don't think I could see a fit for it as of right now. Next up, we have our first minion from the set for Warrior. 2 mana 1/4. Raised Witch, but then has +2 attack and charge while damaged. So if you have a way to enrage this, say when it gets played, which we may look at some of those in a second, it could in effect become a, say, 2 mana 3/3 with charge, which is obviously very powerful. But again, 2 mana, say 1/4, not so good, but a 2 mana either 3/3 with charge, or even if your opponent hits into it or something like that, or tries to do a whirlwind and gives it 2 attack and lets you attack with the next turn. Not bad. I think in the right deck this could potentially work, but we'll have to almost wait and see. I'm not too sold on the enraged cards, so I personally don't think they're going to work out too well. And we have Conqueror's Banner, a 2 mana spell. Reveal a card from each player's deck 3 times, and then you get to draw any of yours that cost more. So this is a potentially 2 mana draw 3 if you're playing, especially if you're playing a high cost deck, or if your opponent is playing a low cost deck. Honestly, I think this card could very well see play if you're playing a high-end control warrior deck. The 2 mana draw 3 is really good. Plus, you get to reveal cards from your opponent's deck, so you get an idea of what they're playing. And knowledge is also always pretty powerful. Even if you only draw 1 or 2 off of this, it's not the worst thing in the world, again, because of the knowledge that you're getting. And at the high end, drawing 3 cards is gone. Next up, we have a 2 mana minion, Anima Extractor, a 2 mana 1/4. Whenever a friendly minion takes damage, give a random minion in your hand +1/+1. So this is a hand buff, sort of damagey style minion. Now, personally, maybe I'm missing something in some sort of strategy. I think Anima Extractor would work out better if it was like give another minion, or just a friendly minion, so even including itself, +1/+1 whenever things take damage. Maybe that would be too powerful, and plus there is some potential benefits to buffing at least a specific card in your hand that we'll get to looking at in a minute. Next up, we have a new weapon for Warrior, a 3 mana 2/3 imbued axe. After your hero attacks, give your damage minions +1/+1, but if you've infused this by having 3 minions die before you play it, give that minion +2/+2 instead. So if you have the infused imbued axe, and say you play a minion and have it damaged, especially say the one with charge, so let's say we have it at a 3/3 with charge for 2 mana, and then you play the imbued axe the turn after if it doesn't die. We'll just go in perfect case scenario here. You can then swing for 2, give that minion +2/+2 and make it a 5/5 already, and then it just would get more and more powerful if they don't deal with it. So it has snowball potential, and because of that, I think imbued axe just might be good in general, not even in an enraged deck, because given, like, you know, you're tending to have damage minions anyway. 3 mana 2/3 weapon isn't even that terrible. If you end up giving 1 or 2 minions +2/+2, you get the value out of this, and I think that just makes this a high quality weapon. Next up, we have the Suspicious Pirate. It is a 3 mana 3/4, so that pretty much perfect stat line you've heard me talking about maybe way too much in these card reviews. But it's also a battle cry discover weapon. If your opponent guesses your choice, they get a copy. So this is another one of those cards that seem to be pretty common in the set, or there's a handful of them that kind of give you that fun, do you pick the best option knowing your opponent's going to think you picked the best option, and so you almost have to play around what your opponent's going to want in order to pick maybe a subpar card, but a 3 mana 3/4 getting a weapon, even if it's not the best, is probably a pretty good card. Plus, it's a pirate. And we all know Pirate Warrior could very well make a comeback at any point in time, so this might just give it a nice little boost. We have 4 mana, Burden of Pride. Summon 3 1/3 jailers with taunt. If you have 20 or less health, give them +1/+1. So this is a, like, if you fall behind warrior card, and even 4 mana 3 1/3s, we have the Warlock card, Demonic Assault, which it does 3 damage and then gives you 2 1/3s, and this is 3 1/3s without doing the damage. However, if they're 3 2/4s with taunt, that would be amazing, but it only happens if you have 20 or less health, which means it's really only against super aggro decks, which is where it would come in the most handy. So I think this card is going to be well played in a control warrior type deck, but it is a good card, so people will at least think about it. I can't think of a deck I played in right now, but only time will tell when we go to play some warrior. So our first legendary minion which is a fantastic minion, which I am excited to see how well this works, is Ramonia, the Living Blade. It is a 4/10 with a rush for 7. Ooh, which is pretty big for only 7, for 4 attacks, sorry. But it has rush, and then after this, attacks equip it. It becomes a weapon. So the neat thing about this, of course, is if this gets damaged by, say, if you attack a 4/4 with this, it becomes a 4/6 weapon, the weapon that attacks the opponent's face, and then becomes a minion, and I believe at that point it would become like a 3/5 minion, again with rush, which they can trade into like a 2/2, which would then make this like a 3 weapon or something like that, and your hero already attacked, and the next turn you attack again. And it just has some nice flavor to it. I'm excited to give it a shot. Don't know how powerful it'll be, but sometimes it's just a matter about having fun with the cards. The location for Warrior is Sanguine Depth. It's a 1-cost 3 durability location. Deal 1 damage to a minion and give it +1 attack. So of course this is where, you know, we have that potential charge minion. You play this on 1, you play the 1/4 on 2, you damage it, make it a 4/3 for 2 mana with charge, and then if they can't deal with that, you play the weapon the next turn. Now at that point it would only be +1/+1 with the weapon, but still you attack, you just keep ramping up that 1 minion. So with the perfect early game curve, the Enraged deck could be pulled off pretty well. So for that, and just in general, I think Sanguine Depth for 1 mana that can sit around, you can kind of just use it whenever you want, or ping your opponent's minions if they're down to 1 health, I think is just going to be a good overall location. And the last warrior legendary of the set is Decimator. Olga, found her. Poor Mankrik. Now his wife is only going to be playable in Warrior unless you find it off of some randomly generated cards. It is Battlecry, gain +1/+1 for each damage minion. That includes your opponents. And then attack all enemies, including the enemy hero's face. So if you can either buff this in your hand with the cards we saw earlier, or if you wait till there's 5 or 6 damage minions on the board, this becomes a big, beefy lady that then just punches everybody really hard in the face. Can go, like I said, can go to the enemy hero. So if this gets buffed pretty high, you can look at this as almost like a charge effect that also potentially clears the opponent's board. And again, it depends on the board situation, or if you have whirlwinds or anything like that. But Decimator Olga is going to be a very powerful card when she goes off. So it's just a matter of how often will that be. I don't think it's going to be that often, to be perfectly honest with you, but I could be wrong. Enraged style decks have known to be surprising in the past, surprisingly aggressive. So for that reason, I'm still going to leave it at the cautiously mid-tier instead of low, just because people will probably prove me wrong. That was all the cards for the Warlock and Warrior review. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.